Holiday specials are actually something that have become pretty common in superhero projects, especially with shows like The Flash, Arrow, Supergirl, and even Smallville, making them happen essentially every single season. However, with that being said, I feel like the universe that did holiday specials the absolute best was without a doubt the DCAU. Yes, this is yet another video of me just glazing the DCAU because that universe is that spectacular. However, it also got me thinking, which DCAU special was the absolute best holiday special? And that's why today we're talking DCAU holiday specials ranked and explained. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. All right, DCAU Holiday Special Edition. So for this list, we technically have 4 different episodes for this. However, I am counting it as 6 different entries. The reason being, one of these episodes actually has 3 separate stories taking place within that one episode. These stories are divided into 7-minute parts that make up the episode. And even within that 7 minutes, although it does feel pretty quick, you are still left pretty satisfied with the story that you do get. So with that being said, coming in at number 6, we do have the Justice League episode from the original animated series titled Comfort and Joy. So this special starts us out on another planet. It is a snowy planet, which definitely very fitting given it is a holiday special taking place in the winter time. So having it take place on a snowy planet definitely makes sense, at least in the beginning. This is where we do have a little bit shared from the Flash about what he intends to do for the holiday season, and this is where we learn Martian Manhunter had essentially nothing to do for the holidays, which makes sense considering he has no family on Earth by this point. However, luckily for him, Clark overhears this and invites him to attend the holidays in Smallville with Pa and Ma Kent, and we do get some really cool interactions between Martian Manhunter and Clark Kent's family, and they even mentioned that, hey, it doesn't matter you're a Martian, we are no stranger to aliens around this household. They even get him a gift. They get him a nice little holiday sweater that he does put on. A little weird to see Martian Manhunter in a holiday sweater. However, it was still really cool, and we get some really cool moments from Superman talking about him as a child trying to peek through the presents, only to find out that the wrapping paper was lined with lead. And then Pa Kent mentions they were the ones who had to wrap the presents like that to keep Clark from peeking at the presents as young kids do. And then Superman has a really funny moment where he says, well, you mean Santa did, right? Because obviously we know, spoiler alert, Santa is not real. However, given how this show is for kids, having Superman have that acknowledgement that it was really Santa and making his dad acknowledge it was Santa was still just really funny to see. And then another part that I really liked about this episode was essentially everything regarding the Flash. The Flash every single year goes to this underprivileged home for children and tries to grant their Christmas wish, whatever that may be, whether it's a toy, whether it's meeting someone. And this year it is some special duck that is able to sing. So the Flash promises that he is going to get that toy for these kids. So we see him running throughout the city and then running throughout multiple cities because this toy is so highly in demand that it is out of stock in every single store possible, to the point where store owners are even shooing people away because they know people just want that toy and they are all sold out of it. But this is not going to stop the Flash because he does go to the source, the manufacturers of the company, and luckily for him, they have one toy left over, and the owner agrees because it is the Flash that he is going to gift this toy to the Flash. So the Flash does have this to give back to the kids. However, before he is able to return, the Ultra Human Knight does emerge, and the Flash has to stop him from destroying whatever art venue that Ultra Human Knight decided wasn't fancy enough for him because he is an avid art critic. However, in the midst of this fighting, the toy does get destroyed, and we do have that really emotional moment from the Flash where he tells Ultra Human Knight, it doesn't even matter if you try to shoot me with that, nothing could make me feel worse than right now, because these kids really wanted this toy and I promised them I would get that for them. It's the spirit of Christmas. So we do get some really cool interactions between the Ultra Humanite and the Flash and the overall spirit of the holiday season, to the point where Ultra Humanite actually comes around, fixes the toy for the Flash, and modifies it to be, in his words, better. And by better, he means creating this narration that gives the kids a story about the meaning of Christmas, kind-hearted story about a toy maker. And I also do like that the Flash in this moment was a little skeptical, at least in the beginning, and tried to make sure that, hey, it's not going to explode or anything, right? And he said this 2 or 3 times, and Ultra Humanite even said, hey, I'm a bad guy, but it's Christmas. These are kids. I wouldn't even do that. And the Flash trusts him, luckily, and Ultra Humanite was pretty trustworthy in this moment. Then we do see he does get taken to jail by the Flash after doing his good deed. However, his good deed does not go unnoticed because the Flash does end up gifting him some sort of gift for Christmas. So he, even behind bars, can enjoy the holiday season. And then last but certainly not least, the interactions between Green Lantern and Hawkgirl at the beginning were very enjoyable, where they had that snowball fight and where we saw Jon Stewart actually being a kid and actually being creative with his constructs in this show, using all type of different things to create different types of snowballs. At one point, he brings up like 30 snowballs with his power ring and just throws them all at Hawkgirl. This was all really fun, really great time, got you into the holiday season. However, this is where things take a drastic turn and leave it to Hawkgirl, who, in my opinion, is without a doubt the worst character in the entire show. I can't stand Hawkgirl from her betrayal, and then also from this personality trait that is highlighted in this episode, which is all she ever wants to do is fight. Because after this great moment and this great interaction with Jon Stewart, she wants to take him to an intergalactic bar slash club where they just get into bar fights, and at one point she even hits someone else and puts her weapon in Green Lantern's hand and blames it on him. So then they just have this all-out brawl in this bar. And again, there's no snow on the planet, there's no holiday music, it's literally just a brawl. So to me, this whole scene is the reason why this episode is last, because if not for this, it would have been really enjoyable. However, they for some reason decided to take you off planet to a planet that isn't celebrating any holidays for a random bar fight, and it really just annoyed the hell out of me, to be totally honest with you. It is partially because it is Hawkgirl and I can't stand her character in this specific universe. However, again, it is still a huge downer because I was really enjoying Green Lantern using all his different constructs to have that really cool snowball fight. But all in all, that bar battle is what made this so low on my personal list. Aside from that, the episode was still really good. And I do also want to note that none of these episodes are inherently bad. That is the trouble with the DCAU when doing a ranked and explained. Something has to come in last place, but that does not mean it is a bad episode. Just had some really bad moments, specifically, again, the bar battle. But with that being said, that brings us to number 5 on this list, and that is the Clayface shopping incident. Now, with this does come from that episode with 3 different stories in it, and in this, we do see Barbara Gordon doing some last-minute holiday shopping, trying to get her dad something nice. Harvey Bullock is also there with Detective Montoya because they are aware that someone has been shoplifting a bunch of stores, so they are disguised as Santa and an elf to try and catch this burglar. However, they could never have guessed that it was actually Clayface disguising himself as 4 different children, splitting himself up into 4 different people, and then just pickpocketing everyone he possibly can, stealing any jewelry he possibly can off of counters. Again, this was a really fun, enjoyable story. We got some cool combat between Batgirl and Clayface. Got that really funny moment where Batgirl says, "Shoot the Santa," and Harvey Bullock freaks out because he's dressed as Santa, and Detective Montoya just looks at him and goes, "No, not you, the sleigh, you idiot." So again, this was just some more fun and some more cool banter between characters that I already really like. I absolutely love Harvey Bullock in the original Batman the Animated Series TV show. So the fact they gave him this moment in the sequel series really makes me happy. And all in all, a really good episode. Again, it's just stacked up against some really spectacular episodes. So that's why I can only put it at number 5. But with that being said, coming in at number 4 on this list, we have Harley and Ivy Holiday Edition. So in this, we do start out seeing Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy in their apartment, enjoying in the holiday season. However, Harley Harley is depressed because she wants to get a Christmas tree. And obviously, we know Poison Ivy is not going to like this because she is an avid plant lover. So she is never going to be okay with or support cutting down trees just to keep them in your house for about a month and then they just die. So that definitely makes sense. But she says to Harley, we can still have our holiday fun, even though we're two of the most wanted women in Gotham. However, still no tree. So they do go to Veronica Vreeland's party. Side note, I feel like Veronica Vreeland is always having some sort of party in almost every other episode, but hey, someone's got to have parties, right? And in this, we see Bruce Wayne getting hit on by a ton of women trying to capture him under the mistletoe. And as this is going on, Bruce is trying to get away and he meets someone in the shadows. That person kisses him and it is later revealed to be Poison Ivy. However, luckily for him, it is not her poison lipstick, but also still not great because it is actually her mind control lipstick that she does use on Bruce Wayne. So her and Harley do essentially kidnap Bruce Wayne and they go on this crazy shopping spree where he is just spending tons and tons of money. Obviously, Bruce Wayne is a billionaire, so it is not too much sweat off his back, but it is still kind of hilarious that they do this entire shopping montage just spending tons of Bruce's money to celebrate the holiday season. Bruce then does fall down an elevator shaft when they do try to kiss him again because it is starting to wear off and he does end up getting away. They think he died. They don't really care. They got his credit cards, so that is all that matters. However, as they are driving away in the limousine, they do notice that Batman is tailing them. And this is the moment that I did take points off, just because although it is a holiday special, it is still utterly ridiculous. Batman isn't in the Batmobile, he's not in the Batplane, and none of these vehicles are near him at all. He's literally gliding down using his cape and a grappling hook. And instead of just continuing to drive or drive a little bit faster to get away because there's no shot the Batmobile would have made it to him in time, picked him up, and then been able to chase after them. That absolutely would not have been able to happen. So if they just kept driving, they would have gotten away. However, instead, Poison Ivy grabs the steering wheel and says, oh, we'll lose him in the toy store. And they crash into a toy store. And then we get this really funny scene of Batman trying to climb this giant toy thing with a bunch of toys everywhere. And Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy just continuously using the toys to hit Batman or to knock Batman off this platform. Then they are about to escape. However, luckily for Batman, there is a gigantic Christmas tree right there. So he does use his grappling hook, takes that tree down, and when the tree falls, it falls on Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, and they are captured. We then get a really funny moment between Harley and Ivy where Poison Ivy mentions, oh, we finally got your tree. Are you happy now? And Harley Quinn just laughs and says, yeah. And then the episode cuts, ends. Not a ton in this episode, but it was still a lot of fun, really funny moments. If not for that limo scene, I might have had it slightly higher, but all in all, still a very enjoyable episode, still a really good holiday episode in my opinion. That being said, coming in at number 3 might be a controversial pick, putting it this low. I have Christmas with the Joker. Now, there are a couple reasons that I do have it this low, but first and foremost, let me explain why I have it above the other ones. So this one does show us the Joker breaking out of Arkham for the sole purpose to torment Batman and the people of Gotham over the holiday season, to the point where he commandeers a Christmas special and does a riff of It's a Wonderful Life, which is absolutely hilarious to see because Robin was trying to convince Batman to watch this movie with him for probably a few hours, maybe even a few days leading up to this, and Batman was just not having it. But because there was no crime going on, nothing happening, they do end up watching it together. But before they can actually enjoy, they notice that this clearly is not It's a Wonderful Life. It is a holiday special by none other than the Joker. So then we do see some really cool antics between the Joker and Batman and Robin trying to capture the Joker as he's doing these really wacky things. At one point, he makes a train almost crash because one of the people that he did capture and hold hostage, her mother was on the train, so he just decided, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna make the train crash. And one of the other really cool additions additions was the Joker had a little sock puppet that he made talk during this as well, which obviously is a big Joker thing to do. He's a goofball. It was hilarious. It still to this day makes me laugh in some moments. Some of it is utterly ridiculous, like the Joker riding away on a Christmas tree, but for that I can suspend disbelief because it was that enjoyable. Not to mention, probably the best part of this episode is the Batman Jingle Bells spiff, where the Joker makes up his own little part of Jingle Bells. And I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, anytime I hear Jingle Bells at all, this is literally the version that I hear. The Jingle Bells, Batman smells, all that. That is 100% what I hear anytime I hear the traditional Jingle Bells, because that's how amazing this spin-off riff song is to me. And again, I know it didn't originate in this series, but this series definitely did make it very popular because of the popularity of Batman the Animated Series. With that being said, I feel like this doesn't have a ton of action in it, and it gets wrapped up at the end pretty quickly. Nothing major happens in it. Again, it is just a fun holiday episode, so it doesn't lose any major points for me, but it doesn't do anything monumental to make me score it above the other two. And that's really why I do have it here at number 3. But speaking of that, coming in at number 2, we have the Static Shock Holiday Special. Now, this one is amazing. Honestly, to the point where it was very close to being number 1 on this list. This shows Static Shock trying to juggle being a superhero while also being a teenager, having friends, having a life, and we do see his friend Frida is having a Hanukkah party. That is another thing I do enjoy. It's not just Christmas or New Year's in the DCAU, they are at least including the other holidays for a little bit more inclusion for everyone. So they do have a Hanukkah special for this episode, and Virgil does end up missing at least most of this Hanukkah party because he is out being static. However, he does eventually make it to the party, and although Frida is pissed, it is something that is forgiven eventually by the end of this episode, but not before Static has to once again leave the party because of a citywide blackout, and this blackout is revealed to be caused by a villain called Permafrost. Now, Permafrost is a bang baby who lost her mother at a young age. Her stepfather abandoned her, and she was essentially homeless and just going throughout Christmas being totally miserable, and going throughout the holiday season being all alone, totally miserable, and essentially everywhere she went, misery followed. Part of her powers weren't fully under control, and Virgil not only notices this, but he empathizes with her to the point where at the end of the episode, he doesn't turn her in, he doesn't make her get in any trouble, he actually connects with her, and they connect over their shared trauma, because as we know, Static Shock lost his mother at a pretty young age, and it was in a pretty tragic fashion. She was murdered, and that is something that the two of them were able to bond over. And I always love it when the hero is able to bond with the villain in some way, to the point where sometimes the hero doesn't even end up turning the villain in because they see that this person isn't inherently bad. They just had a lot of bad things happen to them, so they need a little bit of grace and a little bit of faith. And this episode really highlights that, and highlights that characteristic in Static Shock. And this is one of the episodes that made me absolutely love Static Shock. So to me, this episode being number 2 on this list absolutely fits, and it almost made it to number 1. However, speaking of number 1, let's go to number 1 on this list, a Holiday Nights episode with those 3 storylines, and we're talking about the last storyline taking place on New Year's Eve, and this brings us the Joker breaking out of Arkham and making a New Year's resolution to not kill anyone for the next year, which on one hand is utterly preposterous, because does anyone really believe the Joker isn't going to kill anyone next year? I mean, come on. But also really, really funny, because in the Joker's mind, since he's not going to kill anyone all of next year, he has to kill a ton of people before the new year. So he decides to plan a big holiday bash at Gotham Square, where he is going to unleash a sonic device that is going to kill a ton of people. And you might say, well, this doesn't really feel like a Joker plan. No one's going to die with a smile. Well, guess what? The Joker thought of that. And not only that, but how to help disguise himself being there. He brings and hands out thousands of Joker masks, so everyone, number 1, would would die with a smile on their face. But number two, when Batman and Robin do arrive to foil his plans, they are not able to just find the Joker right away because everyone essentially looks like the Joker. Which, side note, I don't know why all these people would, number one, attend this party, and number two, take all these Joker masks, when by this point, the Joker is a very notorious murdering psychopath that essentially everyone in Gotham City should know by this point. But you know what? It's the holidays. Who cares? Let's put some smiling clown masks on and have a good time, and hopefully not die. That being said, Batman and Robin are obviously able to stop the Joker. Not before Batman is shot. The Joker does get a couple broken bones. So this actually showed us a little bit of brutality for the sequel series to Batman the Animated Series. This was actually the first episode that they came out with, and it was a really, really good start to the new series. However, to me, the part that pushes this episode to number one on this list is without a doubt the interaction between Commissioner Gordon and Batman at the end of the episode, which sees them going to a coffee shop together after hours. The coffee shop is closed. It is only Commissioner Gordon in there and the shop owner. And then through the back door in walks Batman. And it is implied that they have this meeting, or have been having this meeting, for the past few years, and that it will continue on. And they just banter back and forth about this previous year, about this most recent encounter with the Joker, how it was a close call. However, everyone was still saved in the end, and that is what really matters. And to me, this was just really wholesome and really cool, and showed the connection that Commissioner Gordon and Batman have established by this point, and will continue to establish each and every year going forward, because it is implied that they are having this meeting every single year. And then we do get a really funny moment where Batman does his iconic disappearing act. However, he is not going to leave Commissioner Gordon with the check. He leaves enough money to cover his coffee, Commissioner Gordon's coffee, and a nice tip for the coffee shop owner. And it's at this point Commissioner Gordon has that funny line that one of these years he is going to beat Batman to the tip, and then Commissioner Gordon does proceed to leave, and that is it for the episode. All in all, I really enjoyed this episode so much. It is by far my favorite holiday special, superhero edition wise, mostly because of the interaction between Commissioner Gordon and Batman at the end. I just feel like it makes their connection and bond so apparent that they are spending their holidays together and assessing the state of Gotham together. I just really, really love that. Let me know what all of you think. Do you agree with my rankings on this list? If not, how would you rank the DCAU specials? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.